that game last year. I needed football so bad and sat through a 2-hour rain delay to see Hawaii. But I really went to see Hawaii because it made my 91st FBS team out of now 134 to see in person, and I'm trying to get to 100.
That's awesome.
But before I croak.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to croak before I get to 100. And this weekend, I'm sleeping till 7:30 Saturday morning if it kills me.
All right, you good, Shane?
Yeah.
You good, Brett?
Ready, roll.
All right, we're here, Brett Norsworthy, Real Talk Sports 56 in Memphis. Thank you for joining the show. First time.
First time. I love you guys, and it was great to see that they let you transport Cousin Shane across state lines. I was really worried that the authorities may stop him, but one of the highlights of the week is meeting and being around y'all. I've had Michael on with me, and going to have Cousin Shane on with me at some point, and I can feel the love and the energy for college football that y'all have, like I have. And I like to encounter people that when I leave, I go, you know what? They may love it more than I do. and it's very rare that I run into that, but when I do, I always like it, and I can feel it with you guys.
Well, one of the coolest things you just told me is that you have seen 91
of the current 134 FBS playing college football teams in person. Hawaii made it number 91 last year. This year, I won't get any in the regular season with my Ole Miss work.
Yeah.
We'll have to get into a bowl. We play Wake Forest, but I've seen Wake Forest both there when we went there in 2008, and they played in Oxford non-conference before that. So I won't get anybody new unless we get into those college football playoffs, and then there's a potential for a lot of new there.
Yeah.
Been 2 seasons ago, season of 2022, it was a big one for me. Had Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night, and left Thanksgiving night the next morning early to the Memphis airport and flew Memphis to Detroit to Columbus, and went to Ohio State, Michigan at the Horseshoe on the banks of the old Intangy to do my best Keith Jackson imitation. And I texted everybody. I said, 10-year-old Brett would be really happy today. Because that seemed like going to the moon. When you'd hear Keith Jackson talk about, high top Ohio Stadium and on the banks of the old Intangy. And I was so dumb then, I thought he was saying old, like O-L-D, and then whatever the next word was, Intangy. No, it's one word, O-L-E-T-A-N-G-Y. And all those fans, and I love their fandom, like I just said about y'all, people that love it. And every one of their fans, young, old, male, female, every race, every creed, every color, they all had on a jersey. I mean, every one of them wore a jersey. We have a lot of jerseys in SEC, but every single Buckeye fan had on a jersey. And then that day we got a great game for 3 quarters, and then Harbaugh got them in the 4th quarter, and I loved every second of it. And that was a big one to check off Ohio State and Michigan in person.
So you do sports radio out of Memphis. I think Memphis is one of the most underrated towns for SEC. My dad's side of the family, they're all from Memphis. So we got Tennessee covered. We got Arkansas covered. State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Bama.
The hometown team, the Memphis
just in my
Tigers.
family. You know
the number of Bama alums in Memphis, people really don't realize. It's ton. Georgia, same thing, and all
bandwagon.
all that influence. We're a melting pot, and the hometown team's playing well, and a real chance for the Memphis Tigers this year to be in that college football playoff in that non-power conference championship spot. They could be there as the 12th seed, and I've even thought about how fun that would be for 5-seed Ole Miss in the playoffs to be hosting Memphis. I've told everybody at our radio station we will be doing remotes at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday if that's the case of that game playing out. But isn't this an exciting time with the playoff coming and kicking off a brave new world of college football? And one thing that kind of may a little bit hurt me with my experience and kind of my knowledge of the game, we're all starting even. Everybody's starting out at the starters line again on who's going to make it, what it's going to take. Do you have to go undefeated? Is it 1 loss? Is it 2 losses? Can an SEC team get in at 9-3? The answer to that is I don't think so. But we're all going to learn this brave new world all together, and there's no institutional knowledge. Boy, remember the 1961 Cotton Bowl? That doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It probably hadn't mattered for a long time, but it sure doesn't matter now. That it's going to be a playoff world. If you don't go to the playoffs, I don't think many fans are going to have an appetite to want to go to a lot of those other bowl games. And I'm sorry, because we have a good bowl game in Memphis, but it's going to be a playoff world. And if you're not in it, I don't think you're going to care about going to those other bowl games. Games like Gator, Music City, Liberty could really hurt.
Yeah.
We talked about one of our favorite games is the Egg Bowl, and it's just you're eating Thanksgiving, you're watching good football.
Then you're fighting.
Yeah. Are you upset that they shifted that game?
I'll take it whenever. I liked it on that day because I'm used to it. I'm used to being busy on Thanksgiving. I've got a great family, but they always knew I was working that day, and I kind of liked it because sometimes it can get a little hectic at Thanksgiving. So I liked it, but I'm going to love it going to Friday. We played on Friday 2 years in a row in 07 and 08, played at Starkville. That was the last hours of Ed Orgeron as head coach at Ole Miss after he blew a lead and went for a controversial 4th down at midfield, and State won, and Ed Orgeron was fired after the game. And then in 08, we played on Friday in Oxford and won big 45-0 over State.
Well, I've got a cousin. Shout out Cousin Randy. So, like I said, we do Thanksgiving in Memphis every year as a family. There's 50, 60 people show up. Cousin Randy, though, he's always there, but he leaves for the Egg Bowl because he gets so emotional, so wild. He's the biggest State fan I know. He can't watch it with anybody. It means that much to him.
There's a lot of passion around that game. Last year in the closing minutes, I go down to the field to get ready to do post-game and interview Coach Lane Kiffin as soon as the game's over. And Ole Miss is just trying to land the airplane, just run the clock out. Dart was hurt, and it was cold, always cold, and 17-7, just trying to get to the finish line. You could feel that energy. And then when the team that wins, when they go and get the golden egg and bring it into the locker room, I could show you pictures. Man, when that came into the locker room with that feeling, there's no drug that's ever been made that's better than a victorious locker room drug. Yeah. It is the best feeling in the world. And, for somebody like me, 5'8" and 170 pounds, I played 2 plays of high school football. I was offside on one and 12th man on the field on the other one. So for me to be able to be in a winning locker room around those big guys celebrating, it's just a magical feeling. And the rivalry, I tell people, I like my Egg Bowl just like it is. Sometimes it jumps the shark. Sometimes it gets way off the grid, and it did for a few years. I don't know if it's healthy that we need the 82nd Airborne outside the stadium like a couple years, like it got with Mullen and Freeze.
Yeah.
But Lane, it started with Joe Moorhead and Matt Luke. They wanted to start turning the temperature of the Egg Bowl down. Let's kind of keep it to Thanksgiving week, to game night. I don't know that we need to fight year-round because there are a lot of people, like at a Thanksgiving meal, that are sitting down that one's State, one's Ole Miss. That is very, very common. And then Mike Leach, the late, great Mike Leach and Lane really turned the temperature down to let's just keep it to good, fun, clean competition. And I think it is continuing with Jeff Levy, who has a great relationship with a lot of Ole Miss people and with Coach Kiffin now.
Was it true Dan Mullen dropped propaganda on the football field? That was like...
No, that was Leach.
Was it Leach?
Yeah.
Are you sure that he dropped the,
Texas Tech.
Oh, okay.
He did it to Tech.
I would say true on anything in the Egg Bowl.
All right.
Any accusation, propaganda, anything, I would say true.
Okay.
It got wild, and I loved in 2014 and 2015 when we were both good. And I told my friend Matt White, who's the analyst on Mississippi State football, I said, isn't this a lot better being good and on both of us on the cover of Sports Illustrated, playing for something that matters over Thanksgiving weekend instead of the winner goes to the Poulan Bowl and the loser fires their coach. and we've been in that cycle a lot of times in Egg Bowl world. I told Jeff Lebby yesterday, this may not go over well with a lot of Ole Miss people, but I did. I said, Coach, I'm not pulling for you in the rivalry game. He said, I understand that. I said, but I wish you well. I may not wish you success, but I wish you well. and he said, hey, come to a game. I know y'all are off 1 or 2 open dates. I said, Coach, I can't make it because I made a promise to myself at 62 years old on those 2 open dates. I'm sitting at home and resting for the push for the rest of the year. So I probably won't go to one of his games, but I'll be pulling for Jeff Lebby. He's a really good man. And what he did with Coach Kiffin in the development of Matt Corral started his freshman year at Ole Miss and threw for 91 yards in Memphis against the University of Memphis in a 15-10 loss. I would have never dreamed you could get that out of him. They did, and Matt put the work in to get there.
Well, speaking of Dan Mullen in the Egg Bowl, a couple years ago, State, I believe they were favored in that game, and that was the game where Nick Fitzgerald unfortunately got hurt.
Yeah.
And then a day later, Dan Mullen was the head coach of the Florida Gators. But leading up to that game, the speculation was Dan Mullen was headed to Tennessee. And I remember being in Memphis at Thanksgiving, I said, anyone know where Jimmy Sexton lives? Because I want to stake out his house, see if Dan Mullen comes over and they jump on a flight to Knoxville. But
well, he's not home Thanksgiving weekend because that is his time of year.
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I wanted to go. You told us a little bit about your relationship with Jimmy Sexton. Whatever you're comfortable sharing, just the fact that he's the guy that really runs the SEC.
I think he's one of the finest people in all of sports and one of the most powerful people in all of sports. And I think some of the public image of him is totally inaccurate. First of all, he represents his clients.
Right.
And he knows there's a lot of money out there. And he's looking for the best deal for his clients and his associates in the college football world. And I think he has made the SEC and college football better. He's one of the more impactful figures in the history of the SEC with what he's done, because when he gets those coaches in, whether it was Coach Saban or wherever, they all start emulating what the others are doing well. If you got 10 hot tubs and cold tubs, we need 20. If you travel really well, start traveling even better. Nutrition, how the facilities are laid out. And what Coach Saban did at LSU with that football operations center, that became the model for the rest of the league. Everybody's trying to one-up each other, and I think it's led by the great work of Jimmy Sexton and how he has been so good to so many people along the way. There's so many people out there, whether it's as a trainer or equipment staffer or just a student manager or somebody got a job as an analyst somewhere. It's more than just the head coaches, and I think his image is pretty good, but it should be even better for as good as he's been to so many people.
A lot of people talking about Texas, Oklahoma joining the league, and when you talk to them, they all have the same goal. They want to make it to an SEC championship game. Well, you know who hasn't? Ole Miss. Is this the year that Ole Miss could make their way to Atlanta?
We're going to get the votes, and I think we're going to get more votes to get to Atlanta than we've ever gotten, even during Eli and during the good Houston years, the good Hugh Freeze years. There's a strong case to be made. Do you want to get to Atlanta? Yeah, of course you do. Because if you get there and you win it, you're going to be the #1 overall seed. If you get there and you lose it, the worst seed you're going to be is probably 5, maybe 6, with the Big Ten defeated team being either 5 or 6. There's your 1 and 2, winner of SEC, winner of Big Ten. Your 5 and 6 will be defeated teams in those games. But what if, for anybody, you had this scenario? You go into Atlanta at 10 and 2.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can get there with that, but let's say you do. You go into Atlanta at 10 and 2, and you get hammered. You get waxed. 45-10, and that third loss, that's fresh in that committee's head when they meet that night and into the next morning to divvy up those spots, and you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
If you're something, and if you're 11 and 1, you're probably insulated from it. But if you go into that 10 and 2 and get beat back, it happened to Arkansas in 2006 with Houston Nutt. They lose badly early in the year to USC, get on a roll, get to 10-1, third or fourth in AP, and then lose a heartbreaker in Little Rock to LSU in the Friday after Thanksgiving game. They're 10-2. Well, they still go to Atlanta. They have the game won against Urban Meyer in Florida that went on and won a national championship. Fumble a punt, have some miscues late, let the game get away from them. They're
fake punt, I think, right? Urban called a great fake punt.
They're 10-3, and they go and play Brett Bielema in Wisconsin in the Citrus Bowl and lose that.
Yeah.
They're 10-1, and then look up and they're 10-4, and all anybody remembered was 3 straight losses.
Yeah. Well, Lane Kiffin's always ahead of the curve, whether it be NIL, whether it be transfer portal. And I'm not saying he would ever do this, but we have discussed if Ole Miss has got a playoff spot locked in, is there a chance that we see him sit Jackson Dart during that Egg Bowl game?
None.
Just so that
he wants to win so bad. And just look what he did for us last year. We had never won 11 games in a season, and he did. To be the Ole Miss coach to win the first SEC championship since Coach Vaught, Vaught Hemingway could be Vaught Hemingway Kiffin renamed overnight.
Yeah.
Now this event is all about optimism. We're all going to do
Everybody's
great.
undefeated.
We got great competitive depth across the board. So let me ask you a negative question real quick. If Ole Miss disappoints this year, let's say they go 8-4, which typically that's a good record for them. That's an awful record, I think, this year with the talent, with the schedule. Will there NIL? What will happen to that? Will the fans continue to pay and all that? What's your thoughts? Because I think that's one of the biggest questions in college football right now.
Just like on Wall Street, people want ROI, return on investment, and 8-4 would not be a return.
Yeah,
that would be deemed more than disappointing. I don't know what the word is after disappointing, but it would be the next word after disappointing.
Yeah.
But a better scenario is 9-3 and you win the bowl game. How in the world at Ole Miss could we be disappointed in that? If it slip to 9-3, go to the Citrus Bowl, beat row your boat PJ Fleck in that game, and you're 10-3 and went 10-3 in 21, 11-2 in 23, and 10-3 in 24.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be disappointed.
Right.
I'll be doing cartwheels.
Last question I have for you: the 9 that you don't have, do you have a roadmap of the games that you're going to get to watch?
To get to my 100?
To get to your 100.
Well, here's how I think I'm going to do it. Because, in Memphis, I get to go to Memphis Tiger games. I've never seen Temple in person. Mm-hmm. They're not on the schedule this year, but they'll roll back around in the AAC. So that's 1. Charlotte new to the AAC.
Yeah.
That's 2. In a few years at Ole Miss, we play Charlotte as well. In a few years at Ole Miss, we play UConn. So that checks 1 off. I don't live far from Jonesboro in Arkansas State in the Sun Belt. If I could, get Appalachian State, somebody like that, or a couple others from Old Dominion from that league, I'm going to get to 100. And last year, sitting in the rain, and a friend of mine said, "Are you really doing this?" I went, "Yeah, I'm really doing it." And any game, any sport, baseball, any sport.
Yeah.
I don't get there late. I get there before it starts, and I don't leave till the clock hits 0.
Awesome.
When I go to baseball, I tell people, I said, until that 27th out's made, I don't leave. And if it's extra innings, I stay. What I got to do? I already allocated 3 hours. What's another hour?
Right. All right, Brett, thank you so much. Before you go, tell our audience how to follow you, how to find your work.
On Twitter at Brett Norsworthy and sports56whbq.com. I'm 3 to 6 in the afternoon with my friend Brian Dacus. Every day I'm in my 32nd year at WHBQ in Memphis and my 17th year at Ole Miss, and I love this stuff.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.